Good morning and welcome to GM's Tips. This is GM Rick on this fine Easter Friday doing this. Hope everybody's doing great this morning, and wanted to go over another adventure path for you guys, and that's the underrated but I really like Legacy of Fire. And one of the things I'm going to do a little different in the format is I'm going to discuss number one in the beginning, materials needed or ones you might want to have for the adventure. So I wanted to get that out of the way first, and then I'm going to discuss a little bit about each module in the path and talk a little bit about where the key hooks are and some of the key things. And at the end, I'm going to do a summary of why the whole thing is a great adventure path, or maybe some things that you want to do to enhance it as you go along and make it into a campaign. So first, needed materials. One of the things that you're going to run into with Legacy of Fire is that the player's guide in this actual path is buyable. And I've bought it before among my path items, and it's a good thing to have just because it gives you a lot of information and key information on the path itself and the area. I always recommend downloading them if they're free, but if they're not, in this case, like it costs, and there are two of them like that where they cost, I would buy them just because they have enough good material for your players to look at that it's worth your while. I always suggest getting the map folios. Here's the reason why. When you bring them out, they have these wonderful maps that will show the players different things in the adventure, as well as parts of the cities that they're going to be in. So that's Katapesh City. This side and this side. So it's well worth it, especially when you're trying to show the players where they are in the city, but you don't want to show them a map that has numbers on them. And so in this one, and I gotta say really on this map folio more than others, this one is really rich because it gives you a lot of the different maps of the areas. So throughout the adventure, there's different maps that they can go into. And even though there are some numbers on these, they're great because as the players get in there and they want to know more about an area, you can show them. And for you as a GM, you can put them out behind your screen and work with that instead of trying to keep your module open and bending it up. So I recommend those very much on this one. Not every path is that thorough, but this one is, and kudos to the bunch on this early path. They really did a great job on it. This is back in the early 20s, so it's going to be a tough one for you to get all the modules for, very honestly. You're going to have to get these on PDF, but if you can get the books, get them. Another book that I suggest you get before it goes out of print is The Dark Markets, a guide to the Katapesh, the Dark Markets. And this book really is rich in the area. It gives you a lot on the Katapesh area, different things that go on, and different islands that are off the coast. It talks a lot about the Packmasters, and it also talks about Pesh and the addictivity of Pesh. And you're going to run into that in this area, is that Pesh, or it's basically the goo out of the cactuses that is refined into a narcotic. Now, in this area, in small quantities, everybody takes it. In their tea and the things they do, it's kind of like the Andes where everybody has a little bit of coca leaf to make them, it's like a pick-me-up. Pesh is the same thing here, but it's highly addictive in large quantities, and that's kind of fun. Now, key thing to note for the GM. Gnomes are addicted to this effect, or excuse me, exempt of this effect. So gnomes can take as much Pesh as they want and never be an addict. So it's something to encourage your players who hate gnomes often, that gee, the gnome is pretty immune to that. Now, they're going to go through a couple of the modules with you that you're going to need. You're going to need this one, which is the first one. And I love this one probably the most. The Howl of the Carrion King introduces you to the Solku area of Katapesh up in the mountains. And you're going to run into a small village there that's in disrepair. And what you're trying to do is you're going and meeting with the lady of the caravan. And she is a mysterious figure, but she is a key benefactor to you throughout the whole play. And she's going to hire you on to help her. And mercantile is everything to the Packmasters. they're all about trade. And so they've lost a key region here where the trade could be very important to them. And so this area is a key area to take back, and the lady is part of taking that back. And so you're going to get to know her, and you're going to get to know her different people. There's some really questionable characters that are even among her group. You're going to run into, I love the Gremlins template. So you're going to run into Gremlins in an old monastery. We had a really killer effect in that area because while they were fighting the Gremlins, one of the guys sent up a war cry, which one of the other creatures in the Abbey heard, and oh Lord, we had the TPK, or not a TPK, but at least a party member kill. That was epic. That sadly the guy left the group. It was not intended to shoot him away, but it was a lot of fun. But you get to meet a Gremlin King, and you get to meet a bunch of Gnoll slavers that are set up in the town itself. And the Gnolls were taken over along with a Periton and some other nasty creatures. And they're all about keeping this area for themselves for a battle market where they can wage wars and have effects. And there is a possessed creature that has this area and runs this area. And he's one of the former heroes of the region, but he has taken a real dark turn. And so you're going to run into him and deal with him. And it's an interesting little rundown on things. I'm trying to see if they got a thing I can show you on him. They've got a lot of information. And one thing I love about the first guide is they've got a lot of information on the region. But you're going to come up against the real thing that's running in this area, and you'll find that this hero, this former hero, was taken over by a Glomere out of the Book of Fiends, and he is a nasty creature that possesses, and he's an outsider, and he's in one of the ruined churches. So he's kind of running the show when it comes to this guy. He's known as Cardswan, and Cardswan was one of the original heroes. He was kind of a Djinn blood hero. And unfortunately, Cardswan has been taken over, and he is not quite himself. But after this adventure, the nice thing about it, and they did something here that they didn't do in all the other adventure paths that I saw and I played. They give you a year after you complete this and help the lady to take this town to go explore the region. And then you got to come back together for the second part and help her some more. What that does is that allows your players to truly go and have some fun. And they give you a lot of different areas they can go explore where there's other Gnoll tribes, there's other lost treasure. You could even go over a little bit in through the pass and go over to the Mwangi Expanse, which is just on the other side of the mountains. So there's a lot of things your players can get to do that they won't get to do in other paths. So keep that in mind, and I think that's a real plus, because a lot of times I think the thing that has been the knock on some of these Paizo paths is that they force you down the beaten path, and they give you a time limit. On this one, they don't. And it's a really unique thing that I loved about it when I started out running as a GM, is the great thing is the party can go off and go another direction. And then they can come back and do other things. So they can go up to Osirian, run some of the single shot modules. They can go over the Mwangi Expanse and run some single shots. There's a single shot even for the Dark Markets of Katapesh that you can run. So there's some other things that the party can do outside the main adventure. And they have that time, and then they can report back to the lady anytime within that year, because it's going to take her a year to rebuild the city into something of a real city. Once she does, she calls you back to the second module, which is the House of the Beast. Now think about that. Who's known as the rough beast? Rovagug. So you're going to go in and find out some lost information she is looking for with Rovagug. And so the Packmasters have a mission, and the party has to go on to an old temple of Rovagug that's in the region. And what are they looking for in this region? Well, they're looking for a very specific item that is key to the whole adventure. And that's what I love, is when they wrap these plots in here. So even though there's a temple and a kraken in here, the real thing is the Vaults of the Beast. And in the Vaults of the Beast, you're going to find some treasure. And one is the Scroll of Kakashan. And the Scroll of Kakashan is an ancient relic. So really, in the second adventure, you're taking them to a relical mythical item that's going to be key to the whole rest of the adventure. Now, along the way, you're going to run into a lot of possessed gnolls and nasty creatures. So this is literally... And to let you know a little bit about gnolls, gnolls either worship Lamashtu or the Rovagug, the rough beast. And the Rovagug ones are kind of an outcast. So this is an outcast thing of gnolls. But then you're also going to get information on other gnolls in the region. They give you the whole Pale Mountain region for your players to go adventuring. Now keep that in mind. You can use that in part 2 of the adventure. Or part 1 where they're going off for a year and looking at things. They can go in some of these places and explore them. So you can use actually the back of this module and the first module as well to help you with their adventuring. The next is the Jackal's Price. And this is a really interesting adventure because in this one you are actually going to Father Jackal. Yes.
Did you just turn on that wax scent thing?
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't ever leave things on overnight like that.
Finish up what you're going to do, because I can't do dishes with you doing that.
I will. I'm going to be finished, but I got to keep going through.
What do you want to watch?
Hi, I'm back. So you're going to run into Father Jackal. And Father Jackal is one of the key nasties, but not the absolute nasty. He is the boss character that has a unique twist to the outer planes, and he has a lot of creatures and humans that are with him in his cult. And so you're going to go in there and deal with them. And one of the things that he's going to have that is very, very, very important to you is a key magic item in this whole quest that's going to help you with the Scroll of Karkashar. And so they'll bring that up, and you're going to run into that, and I'm not going to give everything away. Again, they give a nice little side adventure in the back. So I love these paths because they give you a lot of side adventures, new creatures. Now, they're not necessarily new now that we have the different bestiaries, but they give you more information on Katapesh and the markets there. And so you're going to deal with some of the interesting things in Katapesh. Now, it starts out with you trying to understand the Skull of Karkashan, and you're going to do an auction to try to find the highest bidder for the scroll and identify what's going on. Because what's going to go on for you is this scroll draws a lot of attention from the different rulership of Katapesh. They want this. This is a unique scroll. And the reason is it's a scroll to a demi-plane. And so you're going to a demi-plane where Karkashan, the wizard, supposedly made for himself as a retreat. And they're wanting to explore this themselves. That's where it gets Father Jackal's attention. Father Jackal wants this for himself. And you're going to be fighting off him and his baddies, especially if you say no. And from the very get-go, it becomes a chase to stop them from taking the scroll. The next part, you're tasked to go into the scroll itself. And it is a world of many islands. It is a very cool place. And I love it for this because now you're starting to go planner. So, as you can see, there's some of the adventures on the island itself. Some of our main iconics. There's Mercio and Valeros. You basically take a galley on the island to get around the islands. And it's really cool because you're going to run into a lot of Jinn and Jannikin as well as elementals that are out here. You're going to run into some shades, some dead, some various creatures like Ifrit-born creatures where you're going to run into Azir. You're going to run into Gynosphinx and a lot of Guardians. And the main thing at the end of it is you're trying to get to Herrick. And he's got some information on getting you around and getting you to the right way to come back. And you're going to come back with some key items that are important for the next part of the quest. You're going to find out that there was an Efreet general, and basically this group of adventurers tried, along with Carcassonne, tried to defeat an Efreet general. But in the trying to imprison him, he imprisoned some of the key people that were in the good guys' side, and he took a Nereid with him. That is very important. And he has plans to come back and destroy not only Catapesh, but the city that you created. And he's going to start at the city you created in the very first book, the one that you restored with the agent to the Pack Lords. You're going to go to the realm of fire. So you're going to the Efreet realm, and you're going to go to the city of brass, which is one of the coolest parts of the whole adventure. So you're going to have to deal with the city of brass, and you're going to have to deal with the general's men and the grand viziers there to free this Nereid. And she is going to be a key part of you winning the battle against the Efreet Lord. And it is going to be an epic adventure into the city of brass. You better have the players get prepared for it. Now, most of them won't. So they're going to have to deal with damage from the heat of the realm. So be prepared to read up a lot on that and the effects. The final thing is the final wish. And that is against the evil Efreet general. And he is a nasty, 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 nasty. And there's going to be a lot of things that deal with witchcraft and wishes and how to deal with the actual wishes that will come from this. You'll run into more information on Rovagug in there. The general's name is Javal, and he is one evil piece of work that is pretty hard to kill. And the party is going to be dealing with his army as he tries to invade and destroy the city itself. So you must go into his realm and deal with him and his nasties. And at the end, the great part is that, again, they leave you with a lot of side adventures you can continue to do in the region. One of the things, and again, we're going to discuss a little bit what I like about this. Number one, it's desert adventures. I always love the desert. I love the whole Alibaba and the 40 Thieves concept. This takes into that. Number two, you can easily update a lot of this material. And there's been a lot that's come out since then. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. I'm sorry for the background noise for those of you who got a little one, so Mini GM has to watch her program. Also, another thing I love about it is the inception of a lot of elemental creatures and geniekin. So you get the full taste of this region, because Catapesh is like that. Qadira and Catapesh are both like that. And so keep that in mind when you're running this, is that you're going to have a lot of that involved. Plus, you're going to deal with the region's greatest threats, which are the Gnoll slavers. And you get to deal with Gnoll tribes and Gnolls as a whole. They're really underspoken in a lot of Golarion, except in this region right here, which is really their birth cradle. And supposedly Lamash 2 birthed them down in this region. Another thing I love is you get to deal with two of the nastiest gods and goddesses in the Pantheon outside of Urgathoa, and that is Lamash 2 and Rovagug, the Rough Beast. You get to deal with their followers and see just how vicious they are. And finally, I love Catapesh. I think it's a tremendous city, and the great part about Catapesh, and you're going to find in the third adventure, you can buy anything in Catapesh. There is no limits. If your players have the money to buy a relic, make it a little bit interesting for them to negotiate, but they can get their hands on anything that they want. It just depends on how much you're willing to pay. And again, you're not going to, when people roll the diplomacies down here, don't give them 20 and 30% off the list value. This is Catapesh. Catapesh is the Istanbul of the whole region. So it's open to all worshippers, faiths, all backgrounds. It is not xenophobic by any reason. It is the most open and welcoming place in the world, but it is one of the most dangerous and exotic places to run in the world. And so keep that in mind when you're running that with them. It's just take the time to really flesh out the city. They don't do that so much in the module, but let the players really get to know the city. And the Dark Markets of Katapesh will help you with that, along with some other side materials they'll give you. So keep that in mind. Now, again, I recommend using your hero labs to really reduce some of the NPCs in here. You can add mythic tiers to some of them. I would to the Efreet, because he is really powerful and he's been around a long time. They didn't have that at the time, and so it's something that you can really add in. And plus, it's a really neat place for the players to set up a base. They can really go into some interesting adventures and go different places from here. And it's really kind of a hub for Garand. And really play up the mystery of the Pack Lords, because the Pack Lords are supposedly witch weirds from another realm. And they came here to set up trade on this planet, and they revitalized this city that was being buried in the sands and being lost by all civilization. And now it's become really one of the best places to live in all of the world. It is a true lawful neutral city, and Abadar is really truly a key figure in this city, because it is a city of trade and fair trade. And the one thing the Pack Lords do not permit, they will permit many things and punish them minor-wise, and read up on that as you read into the Dark Markets. But cheating a buyer or being how should I say, elusive on what your product really does, not being forthright, can cost you your head. So the Pack Lords really believe in fair, honest trade. And so any trade that goes on illicitly is at the risk of the lives of those people. Do the Pack Lords know about the Dark Markets? Of course they do. They know about the Night Stalls. But even there is honor and rules that must be followed in etiquette. And so the Pack Lords are very open, but their guards are everywhere. And their guards, as you will read, are former adventurers and fighters of the highest regard. So when you come up against one of those guards in the city, you're not against a 1st or 2nd level guard. You're against a 15th, 16th level fighting type that is really nasty and can take out a single group of adventurers no problem. So that's why it's so important to get to know these. And they got a great picture of these on the back of the book. And I love these guards because these guards themselves are some of the most interesting guards in history when it comes to having a true presence. Now, a picture of a Packmaster so you can get a little bit of a flavor on them and their mask. And let me get you one of the, because I have a great picture of one in here that I hate to gloss by. I think you guys would love it when you see it. But these are truly the flavors of this area. And keep that in mind as you're working with it. It is a mysterious, exotic place that has survived a lot of time. It is a hub of illicit drugs that are quite legal down here. There we go, the Zephyr Guard. I love the Zephyr Guard picture. Whoops, there we go. But this is really a city of trade. And so these are the reasons why I like this one. Yes, it was early in the Paizo Adventures. Yes, they're probably going to redo it. Yes, it is well worth the money and the investment. Yes, it is worth warning. So if you got any questions, hit me up on it. Again, I ran it. It's one of the more fun ones that I enjoyed just because it allowed the party a lot of freedom. And yet you could keep them on task. There still was time limits. Just gave them some time to really enjoy the region. So with that, have a great weekend, have a great week, and have a great Easter.